We're good.
If it's okay, I'd like to share some concerns I have about Alicia.
Sure, I'm always ready for feedback.
When I walked through the lobby a few minutes ago, I heard you say something to Alicia about seeing her at barbecue.
Right. Sarah is one of my sponsees in AA, and we're having a barbecue at her house for some people in recovery. She and Alicia have gotten really close, so Alicia will probably go too.
If that's a barbecue you might be attending,
Yeah, I'm fairly active with all my 12-step friends and sponsees.
I would like to raise a concern I have about your relationship with Alicia. You take great pride in your working with the recovering people, helping them, and doing everything you possibly can to ensure their recovery.
Yes, it means the world to me. Alicia reminds me of myself when I was in early recovery. When I see her and how hard she's working, it inspires me because I know that struggle.
I'm pleased that you care so much about your clients and that you can identify with their struggles. I do have concerns though. When I hear you're going to see her at a barbecue, it seems like a possible dual relationship issue for you. And I would like to know what you think about this.
Well, I certainly know not to sleep with my clients, or borrow money from them, or hire them to mow my lawn, or take them on trips. But seeing Lacey at a barbecue? Come on, Stan.
I'm glad we agree on those kinds of extremes because dual relationships are a big concern for our agency and staff. A dual relationship occurs when a counselor has two relationships with a client, one personal, one professional. Our mission is to provide professional clinical services to clients. Within those services, there's a scope of practice. When a personal relationship with a client or a former client intrudes on that professional clinical service, then we may have a relationship that is considered outside the parameters of what's considered solely professional.
What I understand about dual relationships is that help me here. For example, I know I'm not supposed to hire anybody for any personal services or any form of exchange of money or buy anything from a client. If they've been a client here, I can't contract with them for private practices or anything like that.
Well, let's talk about your relationship with Felicia and what the intent is now. You want to do everything you can to build a safety net for her recovery. I appreciate your concern for her recovery. One goal of recovery is for the client to achieve a sense of autonomy and make decisions on her own, to take care of herself. You play a role. So, if we can, let's discuss what that professional role is and what it isn't. When I walked through the lobby, I heard you say, I'll see you at the barbecue. I had some concerns.
I mean, I shouldn't say that in a public place.
My concern is whether going to a barbecue with a client is appropriate behavior to have a relationship with her outside your professional relationship as defined by our agency. When I heard your remark, I thought, I wonder what Eloise's intent was and where that's going or what that might lead to. Let me check it out to see if I'm being clear.
Are you saying I shouldn't see clients in other contexts? How reasonable is that? We live in a small town here and run into clients all the time in the supermarket and at 12-step meetings. So what are you saying?
Great observation. Yes, we find ourselves in situations that potentially have a dual quality to them. The difference between running into clients in the supermarket and going to social activities together involves the potential impact that action might have on the client and our use of the power we have in the relationship. You were her counselor.
Yes, but I'm not her counselor anymore. She's in continuing care now.
Okay, but she's still a client of the agency. The ethical question is, how long is a client a client? According to our substance abuse counselor's code of ethics, once a client, always a client in terms of our professional responsibilities.
Yes, but she just stops by when she's here. She pops in just to say hi for no more than 5 minutes. I don't counsel her anymore.
Okay, that might be reasonable. Perhaps we can discuss that relationship and the impact of senior outside the agency it functions.
Well, she goes to the women's AA meetings that I go to, and she knows some of my sponsees. What should we do? Leave our home group because clients attend the meetings also?
It is inevitable that we will run into clients at meetings. When does that cross over the ethical boundary and become into a relationship? I'd like to hear your ideas about where you see that line for you.
I don't want to do the wrong thing, Stan, to hurt her. My intent is to be helpful.
Again, I know you don't want to hurt her, and I know you're trying to help her in her recovery. We have to be mindful of not being drawn into relationships that hurt a client or that could be perceived as real relationships.
She doesn't call me or come see me. I want you to know I'm not sponsoring her, but I didn't know that going to the barbecue was wrong, so I won't go.
With your permission, perhaps we can talk about how we make ethical decisions about the nature of a relationship with a client or a former client and what's professionally appropriate. If it's okay, let's use the conversation with Alicia in the agency lobby. How do you think that conversation might be perceived by anyone who's walking by who hears you say you'll meet at the barbecue?
I've never really thought about it. Well, I guess if it was someone who didn't know me, they might think I was personal friends with her. That's not a perception I want others to have.
So you want others to see you as a professional upholding boundaries and your code of ethics?
Yeah, of course.
I reread the code of ethics to help evaluate whether or not there might be an issue. I was reminded of the power differential in all counseling relationships, and that as professionals in our field, we need to be careful to not engage in social relationships or relationships that might be seen by others as social relationships with clients or former clients. You may recall we recently had a lawsuit over dual relationships that put the agency in jeopardy. It got resolved in our favor, but we're particularly sensitive about our liability. It was a wake up call to all of us. So, how can we clarify this boundary issue with your relationship with Alicia?
Wow. I never saw going to the barbecue as pursuing a friendship, and I certainly would not want to jeopardize our agency's relationship with her. I certainly don't seek any personal gain from our time together, although I must admit she does remind me of myself when I was in early recovery. Besides, she has never had a strong, positive maternal figure in her life. That's something I think I can help her with. What do you think?
I admire your concern for her, and it sounds like you're becoming aware of some maternal feelings for her that might be coming close to stepping over that professional boundary. When our relationships with others, and particularly with clients or former clients, begin to even have the possibility of affecting their recovery in a potentially negative way, then we might be edging close to an ethical boundary violation.
I understand, but part of my recovery program is being in touch with other people in recovery, other people from meetings, like Alicia.
I agree. It's important for your own recovery that you stay connected to people in recovery. So the question is, what's the difference between seeing people in recovery at meetings, such as your sponsees or sponsor, and related to clients active in treatment at our agency whom you encounter at a meeting?
Do I have to cut off all my recovery relationships and not go for coffee after meetings?
I understand the dilemma we find ourselves in as counselors. We have to go on living our lives in our small rural community. So, how do we reconcile our daily lives with the federal laws, agency policies, and our code of ethics? We need to be mindful of those boundaries just because of the closeness of our community. The interesting thing is that the clients are not bound by the same rules as we are. So, they may not see it as a boundary violation. In fact, as often as not, clients and former clients are flattered by contact with their current or former counselor and invite such relationships. How will we reconcile these differences? How do we know what the ethical wall looks like before we hit it?
Well, I guess we need to be careful about what contexts we see clients in, whether they're actively being counseled by us or not. Is that what you're saying?
Yes, we do need to be mindful of various relationships we develop with clients. I'd like to use the barbecue as an example to discuss, okay?
Sure. First, I have six sponsees. They've all been in recovery for different lengths of time, and they like to get together every 3 months, all six of them, and do some kind of activity. And they invite over a bunch of people from the 12-step group. Sarah was having a barbecue and asked me because we go to the same home group. She also invited Alicia. I'm not sponsoring Alicia. Does that mean I can't go?
It might help to ask yourself what happens for you when you find yourself in such a dilemma to be your own problem solver.
Well, it's hard to not go to social activities in this small community when I'm invited, but I can see how some might see me in a different light because I'm a counselor. At one party, someone came up to me and started to ask questions about problems in their marriage. I guess she figured that since I'm a counselor, she could get some free assistance. I was really uncomfortable in that situation.
What did you do?
I told her I could not be her counselor and was there at the activity in my civilian clothes. I see. I see what you're getting at. It's hard to be in two relationships, a professional and a personal one, with the same person. And I can see what you mean by how a reasonable, uninvolved person might view the situation. At the party, when that woman wanted free counseling, it was clear that that was not the context or the relationship for that. That's unprofessional. But Alicia is different.
So you see that it's unprofessional to counsel someone outside of a professionally defined relationship. I'd like to hear how is that different with Alicia?
Well, I really care for her. She reminds me of myself when I was younger. I am I am the mother she never had. I feel bad for her that she's never had a positive female maternal role model in her life.
This is difficult for you. You care very deeply for her. I can understand that in some ways she reminds you of yourself at that point in recovery.
Yeah, she does, and it worries me a lot. The last thing I want to do is hurt her or to act in an unprofessional manner.
I value your concern for Alicia and your desire to be professional. It's difficult when we care so deeply for our clients. We're asked to show empathy and caring for clients, and sometimes it can be confusing if we care too deeply. It's like, as caring professionals, we're always living close to that ethical, slippery slope. We can retreat into professional white coats and separate ourselves emotionally from clients, but that turns counseling into a sterile activity and we're detached and removed from their pain. But when we care deeply, we are drawn into the emotional world of our clients, and the boundaries can become fuzzy for us.
I see what you mean. I guess we can rationalize a lot of our behavior when we care so deeply. We call that enabling behavior, don't we? When family members do that with the person in substance abuse treatment. So, how do we walk close to that ethical slippery slope without falling over the edge?
That's an excellent question. Ethical decision making can be difficult at times. Intent is an important part of ethical decision making.
What do you mean by intent? It was my intent with Alicia to be helpful, certainly not to hurt her in any way or to be disrespectful of our agency or of me as a professional.
When we commit to a professional relationship with a client, there's always a power differential. When someone like Alicia comes with her need for a maternal figure, as you well described, we need to be careful of our role in offering to fulfill that need. The power differential alone can create some opportunities for people to misperceive what's going on. What do you think?
Can it be that I took advantage of her because of my own need to be a mother figure in someone's life?
That's always a risk we have. It could be perceived that way.
I feel bad that I wasn't being very professional with her and my own needs came out.
That's a key insight. It's great that you could step back from the situation and see how your caring deeply for her spilled over in other ways.
You think I had power over Alicia?
As I said, when you're a counselor to a client, there's always a power differential that we have to be very cautious and very aware of. It may not be something we do so much as the power that the client gives us. Now, if it's okay with you, I'd like to summarize a little. Mm, And I want to talk a little about ethical decision making and how we can keep within certain guidelines. There are some questions to be asked, such as how that behavior is experienced by someone else. How would your actions be perceived by colleagues in the community, a supervisor, and clients?
I appreciate you saying that. I need to think about it for sure. It makes sense.
I'd like to review what we've discussed and your understanding of the issues.
I have a clearer understanding of how my relationship with clients after their discharge is as important as when they are my active clients. I need to think and give more consideration to how that's perceived, to consider my role with the clients from their perspective. In my relationship with Alicia, I've thought of myself primarily as a recovering person, but I need to remember that she may perceive me primarily as her counselor. In other words, I'm wearing two hats, a counselor and a person in recovery, and I need to be clear which hat I'm wearing and when those hats are on.
So you have a sense of the potential conflict of interest depending on what hat you're wearing and how that might be perceived.
Yes, I need to think about how that reflects on the agency and how the community sees it. So I'm definitely going to rethink a little bit more of my relationship with Alicia.
Sounds like a plan.
Okay.
All right.
See you in our next meeting.
See you then.